Hello, this is an assessment of a Bluthner style 4A grand piano. That's 165 centimetres, 5 foot 5 inches long, and just come into stock. So just want to see what sort of work we might need to do to improve it, and also to appreciate the piano. It's certainly one of our favourite pianos. So looking at the casework first of all, it's been repolished. Not quite sure exactly what kind of polishing. It's not a full French polish, deep French polish. That seems to be either the person who repolished it. Sorry, I'm not kind of focused very well. That's better. Or perhaps the original seller. But it's over the polish, so I assume that's the person who polished the piano, or perhaps it's got original polish on it. Not really sure. If you are able to help there, that would be very useful. It's slightly, as you can see, slightly blemished. Our polish has not been over it yet. I've asked him if he could kindly have a look at it, because there is an obvious defect on the top which we'll have a look at, but generally is in good condition, and as it's one of our favourite pianos, if you're a musician, I can highly recommend it. I've got a Bösendorfer in my house at the moment, and if that sells, I'd be very, very happy to get this one in as a replacement. I'm really loving the Bösendorfer, which is obviously a good, tremendous maker piano. That's a 170, this is 160, so that's 2 inches longer. But we can fit this piano in then without any problem. The top lid is the worst problem. Just have a look at that in a second. This is a walnut case, and walnut, you tend to get this mirroring, so they cut down the middle here, the veneer, and it's got to mirror it. This is very common with walnut pianos. I'm sure you will be aware of that if you're in the trade. There you can see they've mirrored it on the top of the fall. It's very beautiful, and walnut's not so common. Mahogany is the more common Bluthner colour, but there are a few walnut ones, say perhaps 1 in 10 maybe. So there you can see beautiful mirroring there, and the top lid is the problem. So there's the top lid, and you can see it's had things standing on it, especially in the middle here. You can see there it's very patchy. Our polisher is going to throw up his hands in horror and then do a much more surprisingly good job than we expected afterwards. That's his typical mode of operation. So he's an artist, and wants to obviously do the best he possibly can. So it could have this piano fully repolished. That would be an excellent idea, and we'd love to encourage you to do it. It does take 70 hours, so that puts the price up enormously, as you can imagine, with 70 hours work to be paid for, and the polish itself. Now, as the blemish is conveniently hidden when the lid's folded back, you may feel that you don't need that to be done. So obviously that's something to think about, though. In 19 out of 20 times when we go to tune a piano in someone's house, it's actually like this, so that it is folded back like that, nearly always. Now the acoustic side of the piano, that's the strings, bridge and soundboard, is really perfect. So, and it's been restrung, and it's been reconditioned beautifully. So it's got larger tuning pins than before because it's been restrung. The original ones are very floppy on my tuning lever here. This is standard size, so they're larger tuning pins, and they're beautifully done, even with Bluthner style strings. So that's the coning that Bluthner strings we've mentioned before. So it's different from other strings and unique for Bluthner. So it's beautifully done and very encouraged. No cracks on the soundboard or anything, and it plays just perfectly, as we'll hear in a minute. The key tops are original ivory. They're slightly yellowed, as you can see, but with the walnut colour, I think the yellowing doesn't matter too much. We can scrape and polish them to get rid of the yellowing, but it's not. It's integral, I think, to the look of the piano, so not really an issue. And absolutely perfect key tops too. Now look at the action on the mechanism. The dampers are operating with the pedal almost perfectly. They're clearing beautifully here. They should well clear on the bicords here. They should be nice and clear. There's one for some reason or other a bit lower than coming a bit later, so that's obviously something we can do. But although it's perfect to the pedal, it's a bit on the early side, so that some of the notes here are lifting off almost immediately, so those are slightly too early. So there is some adjustment to do. There's a tendency to, if your foot's slightly on the pedal, then they're almost sounding. Now to the keys, they're perhaps slightly on the late side. Around here where there's split wedges at the back, then it's important they don't lift off too late, otherwise it's difficult to tune them sometimes. So here's a flat wedge and further up, and there it's a split wedge, and sometimes the split doesn't go up far enough, so you find it's not damping the strings as it should be. If I touch my finger on there, I hope you can see that. That one there, for instance, on the left, don't think it's coming off as well as it could be. I might be wrong, but when you try and tune it, you find it's not coming off enough. So then you just need to lift off a bit more, really. So that one there, I think, as well might be. So that's lifting off about, the hammer's about 3/4 of the way to the string. So let's say half, 2/3 at the most, but halfway to the string will be much better. So on a Bluthner Style 4 and 4A, where the pedal lifts them off to, where it starts lifting them off, that can be adjusted to lift them off a bit later just by turning this. Now if it's not lifting them off far enough, you might need to adjust this stop rail up a little bit as well. And the dampers to the keys are adjusted by unscrewing this slightly and then then moving this up or down on the wire, down if you want it to lift off earlier and then up if you want it to lift off later. Now the hammers are almost 100% felt. You can just see a little bit of use there, so they need possibly light refacing and voicing. It already sounds really beautiful. These hinges are a bit on the tight side. If you lift the hammers up, they should all fall down nicely, and they're a bit slow, some of them, so they're too tight. We'll have to lubricate here or change the centre pins, but I don't think we need to change the pins, probably a bit of lubricant. Here you can see we put talc lubricant. I've regulated C and C sharp here, note 40 and 41, just as a demonstration of what they should be like. I don't know if you're able to hear it, but this one was making a noise. So there's a rasping noise and you can feel it in your finger as well. So new pianos have talc lubricant on them, or Teflon lubricant, and that's just rubbed into here, and that stops the noise but also makes it smoother to play as well, and makes the action smoother. You can see we'll obviously get rid of the excess talc, but just for the moment you can hear now no noise at all. So I've regulated note 40 and 41. This is note 39 and 40, and if you can see 39, that's B, isn't reaching as far, and you can hear the rasping on it and feel it in your finger, so that's really important for the pianist. And the right hand one is going much closer to the string, so it gets you much better control. So the main regulation is on all grands, decreasing the hammer blow, so as the hammers are a little bit higher up. They fall down over a period of time. They're sitting on this rail here. They shouldn't be sitting on that rail. If you increase this height, you also need to adjust the repetition spring. It's really important. The repetition adjustment is this screw here. So you can test that by playing, this is B and C, 39 and 40, playing them both. They both check. I hold my finger on the key, on both keys at once, and then as I release my finger a little bit, just a slight bit, you'll see that the one that's correct will go up and the one that's incorrect won't go up at all. So that's C, and that spring's obviously got more tension in it, and that's essential, because if you don't do that, sometimes the jack won't go under if it's been sitting on the rail before. This is the jack there, if you can see that's moving out. If it's too weak, then it won't go back under. So the hammer height's adjusted on the capstans here, and then I've also adjusted the let off to get that as close as possible, as we've shown on other videos. And last of all, the drop screw, that's where the hammer rests after all the action's been done. So as I turn the drop screw, you can see the hammer moving up and down, so that needs to get as close as possible and still play nicely. Obviously the important thing is it does work, so it doesn't block against the string. And those two I've adjusted. That one's a bit lower, as you can see. So this regulation of the whole action, I've just gone through it very quickly with you. Now on this piano the key dip wasn't great enough, so I've also taken some of the card out from middle C and the C sharp as well. So in summary, this is a fine instrument in every aspect. Have to think about the casework, what you'd like to do with that. The main work, increasing the key dip, it's very, very low, 10 millimeters roughly, certainly 10.5. I set it at 11 at the moment, and it's playing beautifully. So I've regulated a couple of notes here just to roughly regulated. The team will get on to fine regulation later. And the lubrication I didn't mention earlier, balance rail as usual needs lubricating, the hammers too, so that's going to bring the touch weight down, and then we can even it out afterwards. So actually it's not too bad there, but it's a bit high here on the C here, so it'll definitely come down with the lubrication, and then we'll just have to fine weight it after that. So just comparing it with some other pianos. This is a fully restored Grotrian Steinberg 160. This is a much longer restored Bluthner Grand 1898. And a new 48122, about the same string length actually as the Bluthner Grand, probably slightly less string length. So that's the Bluthner style 4A grand piano, 165 centimeters long, 5 foot 5 inches long. Just come into stock. It's an exceptional piano, but quite out of regulation, and I tried to show you the kind of regulation things that we need to do on it, and then we need to do key weighting afterwards to make it play like a new piano. There's no reason why you shouldn't study on a piano like this. And it's a beautiful tone. It's an ideal domestic piano really. Now the Bluthner's from the 1930s, this is 1936. A superb instrument. There's some of the ones that we're really looking for. The 4A isn't as common as the 4, which is 4 foot 11 inches long, 150 centimeters. But I prefer this one. It's longer, it has a richer sound, and it's one we're always seeking after. Now, what's special about this is it's Walnut. You get this design on Walnut pianos. I love Walnut. Only about, I would say, 1 in 20, 1 in 10 certainly, maybe 1 in 20 is Walnut. The rest are usually mahogany. There's a few black ones too. But Walnut is not very common, and it's a sought after wood, so very pleased to get hold of it. Could do with repolishing, and if you look earlier on in the videos you can decide whether you'd like that done. The main polishing bit is hidden when the lid's folded back, so what we're really interested in is the piano, how good the piano is. It's a piano that I'd just love to have in my house if I needed one at the moment. Now we do need to regulate it. If you come in soon, apologies for the lack of regulation. We've got a lot of work on at the moment, so it may not get started for a while. If you're interested in the piano, please do write to us, info@robertspianos.com. Thank you very much for listening.